pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're talking.
Right, starting with our council activity reports, I had on May 9th, Tarek and I attended the Emergency Management Symposium hosted by Stearns County, just going over some of the emergency management things happening. We also had our working session on the 9th where I think most members of the council were present. On the 11th, we had a safety meeting. That was a special one. That group is working on updating the city's emergency operations plan. It was last done sort of at the start of COVID, so just making sure that that's up to date, and we're working on that. Hopefully we could have a draft to the council for review in the next few months. Special city council meeting on May 12th, and then of course the Stearns County Municipal League on Tuesday the 16th. Went to that, heard from the Stearns County weed inspector and a long discussion with the sheriff on the status of the new jail facilities and things like that. Asked him about your record software, and he's hoping next year. So
Hopefully sooner.
I think he said spring.
Ish.
Ish.
Yeah, well, the new software that they're currently using is dying, so
Well.
hopefully sooner.
He understood that it was something that I got the impression he knew it needed to be worked on at the speed of government. But of course, no information on how much it's going to cost us either. So
I have no idea.
that's all I have. Neil.
Pretty much a lot of the same. May 9th, the work session with Chief Wagner, talking about policing wants and needs. May 10th, we had policy and procedures. Talked about department head spending limits, social media policy, and City Hall closing and the winter procedure to handle that. May 12th, a special council meeting. About police separating, and that was a closed meeting. Stearns County League on the 16th at Kimball, and like the mayor said, talking about the jail, possibly a county-wide sales tax. Good news we all want to hear.
Who doesn't love a new tax? All right, Megan.
I had the special working councils that were previously mentioned. I did Park and Tree Board meeting where we decided on the new swimming dock and we went over some things with the dog park. And then I did go to the landscaping company and choose the rock for the new fire pit that's going to be in Gazebo Park.
I was at all the same meetings as far as working session and the special meeting in the Stearns County Municipal League, and I also was at a liquor board meeting where we discussed doing a fundraiser with the fire, for the fire department, not with them. And also, I was on a Zoom call with Nature Energy on some planning, zoning stuff we have to change
And I believe there's a special meeting coming up for that.
for the planning commission, yep.
All right. Oh,
I just had the one meeting with the police department, dealing with legal issues.
all right. We have reports. Ron.
All right, thank you. First of all, we did have the water festival. That went very well, and along with that, we did have several more tours down at the water treatment plant. In your packet, you do, in the informational, we do have a request to pave the alley from Coronas Avenue to Washburn Avenue. However, there was only 4 people out of 14 that signed a petition on that block. I did talk to them and asked them kind of to wait until we get the library planning is a little more complete, and then hopefully we can get a few more people on board with that. Training, Bob Wonder, he went to a pond operation and maintenance course. Parks are all open at this time. Hopefully by the end of the week, with a little luck, we will have the splash pad open, weather permitting also, which it looks like it will be. Compost and RV dump are both open. Out at the compost, there is some material ready if residents want to take it. Remind everybody again to please utilize the donation box out there. We're trying to sweep the streets this week, so if you see that coming, please remove or take your car off of the street so we can do a little better job. Lead and copper sampling, we are due in June. We do have the bottles in, so there's 10 residents that will be selected for that sampling. And along with that, we are looking at, by I think it's October of 2024, we have to have our inventory complete. At this time, we are just waiting on some grants. PCA said there will be grants available for that. Well number 5 is getting its rehab. Pine Wells in town right now, should be complete by the end of this week. I'd like to thank Natalie Utch, and I believe it's the landscaping class who planted all the downtown and all the flowers. So thank you for that. And also the Stearns County SWCD, they may be getting into the chloride issue a little bit. We are not the only ones by any means with this issue. Talking to them, they said when the grants come out is more like not an if, but they may go county-wide and get everybody together, have a lot more power to solicit that grant. So, that's all I have.
Great. Any questions for Ron? All right, thank you. Tark?
Yeah, in addition to all the meetings that were mentioned, like the Emergency Management Symposium, the working sessions, liquor board, policies and procedures, I also attended with the fire department the firefighter interview we'll be talking about today. I also was at the lodging tax board meeting at the Bugby Resort. We talked about what events are going to be in town, some more planning on trying to get things more organized and streamlined on how things are approved and processed. And of course, once the minutes are ready, I will be circulating it to everybody so you can review.
Okay. Any questions for Tark? Anybody here for our open forum? Right, I wasn't sure if somebody was going to come, so I'll just ask the question. Chief Wagner, I was contacted the other day by a resident who has had ongoing issues with the neighbor's dog barking and expressed some concern that the department wasn't taking it seriously. So I was hoping we could just talk publicly about what they should be doing other than contacting the on-duty officer every time, but to help resolve that. And I know it was last week I was sitting out on my patio and I could hear it barking from blocks away. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yep, so I actually got a call on that today. I went out, I actually sat out in front of that house for probably 5 to 10 minutes and didn't hear the dog once.
Okay.
And the report was that it's been barking all day. Well, Vibrant is also working down in that area, so it probably wouldn't surprise me if it was barking all day. But the time that I was there, it wasn't there. I contacted and tried to make contact with the owner to leave a message, but their voicemail's not set up. So, you know, we're trying to contact them, but the tough part is if we're not seeing the violation, it makes it very difficult for us to deal with. And other than contacting the owners, making them aware of the issue and continuing to make them aware of the issue, it makes it very hard.
Okay. All right, so until then, just keep calling you?
They need to keep calling. I mean, it may seem like a nuisance, but at the end of the day, you know, my ability to deal with a barking dog stems from my ability to actually witness it going on or have proof that it's going on. So if they don't have something showing that, provide us, and it's not happening when we're there, the best we can do is make the homeowners aware of it and address it.
Thank you, Chief. All right, then moving on to our consent agenda, which includes the minutes. They're listed on page 1, along with the vouchers on page 2, totaling $289,346.35. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or does anybody want something pulled out?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Hertzberg, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Soini. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. All right. Chief Soini on the hiring of a firefighter.
All right, let's see, last week we interviewed a firefighter, Jeremiah Johnson is his name, and we, as a committee, we recommend that we put in for hiring for Jeremiah, and based on the successful physical exam and the background check. And I believe the background check came back okay. Is that correct?
There's nothing that I would say disqualified him.
Correct.
All right, so with that, a motion would be in order. Recommendation is to hire Jeremiah Johnson pending the completion of a successful physical exam.
I'll make the motion to hire Jeremiah Johnson pending a successful physical exam.
Okay, motion by Sonia is on the action sheet. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. Any further discussion? Chief, are you going to continue the hiring process, looking for the one more, or?
No, actually, I was talking to Jen about that. If we have approval from tonight, we were going to close the hiring process at this time.
Okay. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Motion carries. Thank you. Mr. Melhop, on joining para.
All right, good evening. So if you remember, I was here about a month ago, and we discussed approval to get the analysis of whether or not we'd apply, or if it would be a good move for us to switch to para. We did get that back, and we met with the board, and we met with the members. It does appear that it's the way to go. It's a pretty good cost savings for us, and it also takes the workload off of our shoulders, and it seems to me that the members are in favor, so I guess I'm here to ask for your blessing, and we will get the ball rolling.
So to provide a little bit more background, I've been going to the Fire Department Relief Association meetings, and Brad, correct me if I say anything that's wrong, or Andrew, if I say anything, but, you know, our firefighters earn a retirement. Currently, it's $2,100 per year of service. The recommendation is that that go up to 23, and Brad, hopefully you can speak on why we're picking that amount in a little bit. But right now, it's managed in-house. The Relief Association has a treasurer, with Brad as the treasurer. There's a president, vice president, and is there a vice?
Your vice and a secretary.
And then secretary. And with everybody's lives being what they are, it's hard for members to find the time of day to really give these positions the time and dedication that management of these funds deserve. I mean, the funds need to be in an account, they need to be monitored, investments need to be handled. They are handled by an investment broker, but making sure that things are reported on time, that reports get handled and processed when firefighters retire, and that payments go out. It's a lot of work. And it costs the city, or it costs the department, excuse me, money every year. There's an audit fee, there's other fees that go along with it. Just the audit alone is $5,000. And then there's the cost of having it in a private investor. So the para analysis came back, and by switching from the private investor to the State Board of Investments through para would save the Relief Association $11,000 a year,
Almost 12,000.
almost $12,000 a year. So that would free up money that would continue to be invested rather than having to be withdrawn to pay accountants and investors. The State Board of Investment does all of the investing decisions for any state monitored plan. The teachers' para, the government employees' para, all of things like that. Sort of the consensus in looking at the para performance over the last few years is it goes up and down just like the rest of the market, but when it goes up, it doesn't go up as high, and when it goes down, it doesn't go down as low. So probably gonna end up kind of in the same spot, but saving a lot of money in the process.
So maybe I'll add, we
Yeah,
are
please.
asking to increase the benefit level to $2,300 to do a cost analysis for us. So if we increase our benefit level to $2,300 per year, we would still be $51,000 overfunded. So we believe that's a safe place to be. You know, we are saving $12,000 just in administrative fees alone. So I guess that would also be a part of the resolution that we'd approve the $2,300 increase.
And if I recall, the numbers that you brought to the Relief Association where we could have funded up to 2,500, but then we would have been teetering on that brink of overfunding.
We did not feel comfortable at 2,500.
23 leaves a sufficient balance in there so that if the market does dip a little bit, the city won't need to contribute the difference. So, the one thing that I was going to mention that the thought escaped me was there are 750-ish volunteer fire departments throughout the state. Of those, almost a third have gone to para-management.
I couldn't tell you. Give me a minute.
Please.
So there are 781 fire departments in the state of Minnesota. 216 of those are enrolled in para.
And of those that have enrolled, none have taken control back. There's one department that's looking, but that's not because they're dissatisfied with para. Our understanding or our conversation was that they've now had a number of members join their department who have financial experience and would be willing to take that on. So since they're able to do that in-house, they were thinking of going back and doing it that way. But I didn't get the sense that anyone was dissatisfied with para's performance. So a lot of time was spent. Brad did a lot of work putting the numbers together. If anyone wants to see the packet he's got, it's phenomenal. I thank him for that. The Relief Association looked at it. The Relief Association had multiple meetings over the course of months to discuss this. There was a full fire department meeting. And I think it comes down to everybody understands that with everyone's schedule and nobody having time to breathe some days, this is the way to go. We don't like losing the local control that we have, but the alternative is that we get some people who are burned out, so.
I do want to just mention that the board and myself especially, that we're extremely committed to this, and it's not something we came to very lightly at all. We take great responsibility in the fiduciary responsibility that we have here, so.
Does the council have any questions for Brad? Or Andrew, or Tarek, or myself?
Looks like a lot of investigation went into it and study, so.
I would not doubt that Brad easily put 80 hours of work into this.
Just one more thing to add is when we saw the performance of para versus what they've had in the past, para also performs quite well. It's been, I think, over the long term, even better than the existing one.
The 10-year average is better than the 5-year average, so we're better at 5-year right now, they're better at 10
Yeah.
years. But that's what we're looking at, is 10 to 20 years is what that's our benchmark, so. There are a couple of things that will have to happen. You know, this will go into effect January 1st, if you do approve. Our Relief Association will dissolve as it is, and then we'd restart it, or it would change that we would just administer the general fund, which is our fundraiser fund. So it would still exist for the fundraising aspect, but the pension side was what we're releasing to the state.
Any other discussion? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'll
Thank you
make the
again,
motion
Brad.
to approve Resolution 2023-14, opting to join the statewide volunteer firefighters plan administered by para.
I have a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second? Seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Motion carries. Okay,
The 2,300 is in the resolution.
yes.
I checked to make sure first.
I think Brad drafted it.
Oh, I need knows.
All right, Andy.
All right, airline
Airlines that
purchase.
aren't gonna fall apart?
What's that?
You wanna get some airlines that aren't gonna fall apart or blow up in your face?
Correct. We've already had a couple of them, well, they've started leaking at this point, is why we're looking at it. A few years back, we had one actually break, and we burned up an air compressor because of it. And they're just old and brittle is where they're at right now. They're just PVC piping, and we'd like to replace them. We have a crew of 4 or 5, I believe, that are willing to do the work internally, just with the department. And we would like to purchase the Benco parts only. That's the style of piping that we're looking for and easy to work with. And with the Gilk and the Voss quotes, those are labor and everything included, and it's a steel pipe. so it's a little bit different piping. So we're looking at spending $2,075 for parts. And I'm hoping we can have that stuff ordered tomorrow morning is what Benco is planning. So as soon as we have approval.
All right, any further discussion on this? Otherwise, a motion would be in order.
I'll make the motion to approve the quote from Benco in the amount of $2,075 for parts only for the new airlines in the fire hall. Installation to be completed by the fire department. Funds to come from the capital improvement fund building portion.
All right, I have a motion by Hertzberg as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Brick. Any further discussion? None. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Schmidt on Backdraft Bash.
All right, so I'm coming to the council today on behalf of the Backdraft Bash Committee. We are going to be holding the Backdraft Bash on June 17th of 2023. A couple things that I'm looking for approval on from the council would be once again having it in the township versus in the city limits, which we would be holding it at the Painesville Hockey or Township Arena. Just to let you know that we did do a fire department alcohol training class, which took place on May 8th. I have been in contact with Belinda as far as the LMC insurance, one thing I would need from approval from the city would be to pay that $974 with us as the Backdraft Bash reimbursing the city. We did speak to Chief Wagner about contracting them for security for the event, and he did okay that, so we would need a council approval for Painesville Police Department to do the security for our event. We do have licensed food vendors that we will have on site. We are going to be doing a beanbag tournament again this year. We are going to be having our band scheduled from 8 p.m. to midnight, and that's going to be the Fabulous Armadillos. And we spoke to Pack Electric for the electrician to be on site for hookups and stuff for the band. So basically, I'm looking for approval for that date to hold that event at the township, and also for the insurance and police security.
Okay. And probably do you need the approval for the $200 that you've already spent?
Probably.
What if we say no to that one?
Well, you're tough out of luck. No.
No, you are, you have to pay it.
You guys have already paid it though, I think.
I'm sure we probably have.
I'm sure we probably.
This is so you get your money back.
Yeah.
All right, so just so that I understand it, Shane, the ask is, because it's a little bit different from what's on our action sheet, but authorizing or approving the Backdraft Bash on Saturday, June 17th, paying the insurance $974, the alcohol training $200, both of those reimbursed by the chamber, and then approving for the local police department to provide security for the event.
Correct.
Okay. Anything I'm missing?
I don't believe so.
All right. If there's any further discussion, otherwise a motion would be in order.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet with the addition of approving the local, or the Painesville Police Department to provide security. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None? Carries. All right. Shane, on physicals.
Okay, so the City of Painesville supplies physicals for the Painesville Fire Department. We do them every 2 years. Because of COVID and because of Centricare, some hiccups with Centricare, we've actually gone probably like 4 years since we've done a physical in the fire department. With Centricare, I reached out to them, and one of the hiccups that we are dealing with is they do not provide services for a full fire department physical to take place at the Centricare Clinic in Painesville. So what they are telling me is I would have to send every firefighter to one of their clinics in St. Cloud. So I don't like that idea because, number one, now we're taking every firefighter away from work or away from personal life, or we're taking every firefighter away from our service area and leaving our service area open. So I started doing some digging, and I talked to a few other fire departments, and I was asking them what they did. And one thing that the thing that came back to me from the departments were some departments contracted with Med Compass Mobile Health Service, and other departments contracted with Northern Health and Fitness Plus. So I contacted both those companies, and what they do is they're actually a mobile department that will come to our fire department and do the physicals all on one day, so the firefighters can stay in town. And basically, I would just set up a schedule of when they could take their physical, and then they would have it done right at the fire hall. I got two different prices. Northern Health and Fitness, they came back with a price of $3,760, and Med Compass came back with a price of $4,700. There is a couple different things between the companies. Normally in the past for our physicals, we did a basic medical evaluation. Do you guys have these numbers? Okay, perfect. We did a basic medical evaluation, quantitative fit test, which is our SCBA masks. And then we also did, we did like EKG, pulmonary function test, stuff like that. Reaching out to these two companies, I also included a quote for PSA blood work for firefighters over the age of 40 years of age. And that PSA blood work is basically a prostate blood exam. And if there's elevations that they're concerned of, then obviously we would be notified and we would seek medical attention, personally. And then I also wanted to do a blood panel, which basically is like a CBC or basically they go through your blood chemistry and see if there's any red flags in the blood that would trigger potential risk of cancer for firefighters. Those two tests I'm requesting to add as an additional versus what we used to do just for the safety of the firefighters because of the job that we do. I am pushing more towards the Northern Health and Fitness. Obviously, they are $1,000 cheaper. And she said that basically the NHP blood panel is just as effective, if not higher or more effective than the CBC that Med Compass offers. And obviously you can see the price difference between the CBC versus their NHP blood panel. So I'd like to get a motion to contact or reach out to Northern Health and Fitness and schedule physicals for the fire department, preferably this fall. But I obviously need your guys' approval to go with this company. Also, though, I do want to say that for individual firefighters, like individual new hire firefighters, though, that one I would have them use Centricare. So unfortunately, yes, they would have to drive to St. Cloud to do the physical, but at least it's only one firefighter versus depleting our whole department. Any questions?
So your $3,760 includes those additional tests that you wanted?
Correct.
Thank you.
So basically, if you were to go with how we used to, the old physicals that we did,
Seems to me it was around 5,000.
so basically, the old if we were to stick with how we used to do physicals, we would have been looking at $2,640. So you're looking at about $1,000 more to do the blood draws, but to me, I am strongly recommending that we do these for the safety and the, the concern of firefighters. But if you guys don't want us to, I mean, we obviously, whatever you guys approve is what we get.
I see the logic and the reason why a blood panel would be helpful. The PSA gives me pause, not because I don't think it's a valuable test, it absolutely is, but how does that relate to the firefighter? And at the end of the day, it's $160. I don't know that I care. But what I do want us to be thinking about is, if we're doing a test, something to check for pre-cancer signs for men, at some point we should be looking at also offering, whatever preventative screening that the female officer, or the female firefighters would need.
And that's where the blood draw would come in effect for, because they would be looking at your white blood cell counts and your red blood cell and all the other stuff. So if there's elevations in that, then that blood draw will guide them or direct them towards a potential cancer awareness situation in that person. So they would be still testing appropriately for the female firefighters as well.
I guess what I'm thinking more is, I don't know the age, or I don't have the right parts to be informed on this stuff, but at some point should we be looking at like mammograms or something? Is it the same type of testing? I mean, the PSA looks for signs of prostate cancer. So should we be looking at, other preventative screening measures then? And that's where I'm wondering, like, okay, now are we opening and getting away from the purpose of a fire department?
Well, there's a significant risk associated with male firefighters and prostate cancer versus the rest of the male population.
And that could be, I don't know.
That's documented, yeah.
So if there is a coinciding female cancer, I can see us covering that too. I just haven't researched that at all, but I know there is for prostate cancer, so to me it would coincide.
Okay.
And I totally get where you're coming from. I did look up or research, and right now in the United States, prostate cancer is 28% higher in firefighters versus unfirefighter related. And the reason I'm kind of pushing for this is because I know a firefighter fairly close to me that actually had prostate cancer, and the only reason he found it was because of this PSA test.
Oh, no, I get it. It's a totally valid test, and I just want to make sure that if we're doing something as a city, that we're looking at the whole department and not just one gender of the department. I couldn't care less about the $160. That's a drop in the bucket.
So
But I
would
just wanna
you-
make sure we're looking at the whole department's health and not just 8 crotchety white men.
I know that neither one of these companies do, like,
And that's fine. I just keep it in
whatever
mind
those
as we look
mammograms and
forward.
stuff, but
I guess.
well, we could,
Anyway.
if that's something that you'd be interested in, we could definitely get pricing from Centricare to do those tests on behalf of the fire department for the females.
I think just keep it in mind, and if there's a reason for us to be doing so, then we should talk about doing it.
Okay.
So, but there's a reason to do the PSA. If it's 30% higher, we need to be testing for it and responding to it, so. I'm good. Anybody else? Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make the motion going through Northern Health and Fitness Plus for $37.60, plus the PSA for,
Nope, that's
No, that's
included in it.
included in the 3760.
oh, that PSA is too?
Yeah,
Yes.
yep, I asked.
Well, if that's everything, then we'll go with that for the firefighter physicals in the amount of $37.60.
And there's a motion by Hertzberg to approve going through Northern Health and Fitness Plus for the firefighter physicals in the amount of $3,760. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brick. Any further discussion?
Do we need to make a separate motion regarding new firefighters going to St. Cloud? Or add on to that one?
We have an existing service
We
agreement.
do have existing services with Central right now.
So it's not, but because it said about paying mileage, since they're doing it in St. Cloud versus here, is that something we need to
They
add?
still get paid mileage for
Yeah.
that at this time.
So it doesn't, it's
Yeah,
like
if
in
they're coming there,
already?
they get paid
Okay.
mileage and
I just don't want you to have to come back if you get somebody new and it's, that's a pain.
No, basically, with our last new hire that we had, we handled it, or we handled her physical through Centricare. They lined it up where they could have either gone to Wilmer or St. Cloud. She chose St. Cloud, and basically, she did her physical and then submitted the mileage from St. Cloud to back to Painesville.
Calling the question then, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? None?
Thank you.
thank you.
Right. Ron, on to you, sir, for a swimming dock.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like
Public
to,
meeting, guys, you don't have to leave.
They have another one.
Wait for our next training.
Training tonight.
out at Veterans Park, we have had a swimming raft out there since probably before Neil can even remember.
Well, forever.
Forever, yes.
That's forever.
Forever.
Anyways, currently, the one we do have is in a state of disrepair. All the corners on it, with the wave action, they've actually, they got somewhat brittle and they cracked and obviously take in water, and we've had a problem with them sinking, so. Got three prices, with the low being from Channel Marine from Richmond there at $30,042 and 31 cents. That is a roto molded type of design. We looked at the design, it looks like it's gonna not create the same issues we have now. It's the same units that Bugby's had out for years. It's 102 feet long by a 5-foot width. And funding-wise, we'd have to take this out of the park capital improvement. There are two possibilities yet. The township is going to be taking this up tomorrow night at their meeting. And also tomorrow, I am meeting with the insurance company. Being this is only 12 years old, it did not run its full life, there is a good possibility that we will get something out of it. How much, I guess I can't tell you at this point. So that is where we're at. Delivery, we can have it within a week to 10 days. If we want to set it up ourselves, if we want to wait for them to set it up, it'll probably be the first week of July. So they said they're booked on that end of it, but the unit is available.
So you are gonna set it up yourselves?
We will set it up ourselves.
I have to disagree with this.
Yeah?
I think that we should worry more about getting lifeguards out there than a new dock or a life raft. I think the public safety, especially for those who are unable to swim, would be a lot more important than spending $30,000 on a dock. So that's just my opinion on
We
that.
can't get a dock, we can't get
We
lifeguards.
can't get lifeguards.
Well, you need lifeguards, you just gotta pay them enough.
No, we've offered and we don't even get
It
applications.
kind of falls into the same problem that you have with hiring police officers. Okay, who's supposed to fix the problem? I mean, new squad cars or whatever? No, we have to find a way to keep people safe. And if we're gonna spend $30,000 on a dock, I think we should look first at getting the beach orderly. Because if you get a new dock out there, a new raft, it's just gonna be more fun for the bullies out there to throw little kids off without any supervision. And that's why I think it's just, in my opinion, it would be a lot better if we would work on getting lifeguards first and then working our way on down to the replacements.
Gene, you were on council when we had lifeguards and
Yeah.
tried to do it. Can you tell us about how that went?
Well, we did have lifeguards for a number of years, and we even provided swimsuits and radios and all kinds of stuff. And then all of a sudden, we couldn't get them. And we offered the top. I mean, we advertised everywhere, and people just didn't apply. And I know for a fact, first of all, there's no beaches around that have lifeguards anymore. And even like at the assembly grounds, they can't hardly get lifeguards. And everybody it's just, kids aren't going into it. They aren't getting trained in it anymore.
So
Andy used to be a lifeguard.
the YMCA's don't have lifeguards?
Pools can get them, lakes cannot. My niece is a water instructor, and she could do lifeguarding and will not do a lake. She said, I have never guarded at a lake, because I asked her if she wanted to do it for the summer. And she's trained and has just water aerobics, swimming, Special Olympics and everything, and lakes are just too hard.
Even, you know, Seattle's, there's 3 beaches that aren't opening at all this summer. They just can't do it. And New York City's, Seattle. New York City's suffering because they're really concerned about the upcoming Memorial Day weekend, because they don't have them. And they can pay a lot more than we can pay, and they can't get them, and they have such a large population, and they can't get them. I mean, I do think that maybe there should be a little more explanation or some education out there to parents that, you know, you cannot just drop off your child and assume that someone is going to watch them, you know, and if you're gonna bring your kids there, then it's, you know, you need to make sure that they're not bullying anyone, and that they're not, so I don't know if there's some kind of thing we could do there with someone watching for, you know, misbehavior, but the people trained to save lives or save drowning people just don't seem to be available.
Neil, did you have a thing?
Well, at the end of the day, when you have lifeguards, the parents, and normally it's mothers that are out there, are chatting or looking at the phone and not paying attention to the kids. But when you don't have lifeguards, they should be responsible and keep an eye on the kids. And the years I worked for the city, I've spent many hours mowing and raking the beach and out there. And if you aren't gonna hire youth over 21, you don't get responsible people 9 times out of 10. And they aren't paying attention and doing the job that they were hired for.
And we don't have the data to back that up either.
The what?
We don't have the data to back that up.
Well, I'll back it up with my 2 eyes. I was there.
And most,
I watched it.
Well, I mean, there's data on it now.
I'm sure Ron has witnessed it too.
So, I mean, if we have a public beach and we're inviting people to swim at your own risk and there's a drowning, as being that the city owns the property, are they just setting themselves up for some sort of lawsuit?
not as long as it's.
No, because
The
it's
sign
state,
says,
Hold on, one at a time. Gene started.
I just said, not as long as it's posted that you're swimming at your own risk. They do that at Regional Park, they do it at Green Lake, they do it at all the county parks in Kansas County.
Yeah.
I mean, generally people assume the risk of activities like that they do on their own. I think, you know, not to say that you wouldn't get sued, but you've got insurance, your insurance company would defend you, and I don't think that there would be any liability in the end, but, you know, people sue for crazy stuff all the time, so it could happen. And, you know, nobody wants to see a drowning. I mean,
No.
that's the last thing you want to have happen. But, I mean, I haven't been involved in attempts to hire, but I know that we went through a period of 3 or 4 years where, you know, we have to give some respect to our pay scale. We can't go crazy, you know? So we've got to hire people within our pay scales, and you can't do it.
I think it's, Phil, if we had a lifeguard out there who was negligent or could be claimed to be negligent, would that not open us up for more liability than having nobody there at all?
Yeah, I suppose if they were really negligent, I mean, you know, that's probably true that would be something that could happen, but I think, you know, I remember one drowning out there, and it wasn't a pleasant experience.
It was not.
You know, but
I think we had lifeguards.
And we had lifeguards.
yeah, we did, yeah, and, you know, and the lifeguards felt horrible and tried their best, and just, you know, they were unsuccessful. So,
Chief, at the risk of opening old wounds, would it be possible to increase our drives out there during the day? And just keep an eye out for some of the things like that? And
I mean,
check it for a while and see how things are looking and then come back?
It's possible.
Okay.
Well, couldn't even the public works guys, when they're out there mowing, if they see
Issues?
issues, contact somebody?
Report it?
Even if you were doing a walk around.
I guess, getting back to the issue at hand, I appreciate your thoughts, Paul. I don't know. I would love to see a world where we can get some lifeguards out there. I wasn't on the council, but I saw the headlines and the news articles on why they stopped, like why we stopped providing them out there. And it was not an unwillingness, it was a sheer inability. And if anything, the availability of lifeguards has only gotten more difficult since that.
I think we tried for 2 different years.
At
It
least.
was at least 3 years in a row. that we-
Yeah, 3 years in a row, and we just couldn't get them.
But my thought would be we should move forward and leave that as is, and if we want to, as a budget, look at, putting something in there for lifeguards next year, we have those discussions through the budgeting process.
That's what I would suggest too. If we want to look at lifeguards for next year, let's plan it. At least put it in the budget so we'd have it.
Yeah, maybe times have changed.
But I think for this year, by the time we'd get something posted and out and hired, we
Summer's over.
Yeah,
And if the insurance is going to help us pay for this, that's
right. So with that, I think a motion would be in order at this point.
I'll make the motion to accept the quote from Channel Marine and Sports in Richmond in the amount of $30,042.31, plus $430 for a ladder, totaling $30,472.31, with funds to come from the park CIP.
All right, I have a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion does carry 4-1. Right, on to 33, fire or police department, excuse me. Chief.
So this is just kind of a follow-up to our working session that we had on May 9th. Some of the things that we had discussed, some different ideas. I believe the general consensus coming out of that meeting is that, we're really looking to reassess the type of individual we're trying to recruit to the city. These are just some of the things that were talked about at that meeting. Some things that weren't, but as I look through the post boards, some things that I think could have a potential positive impact for recruiting the right type of person that we're looking for. We've been going for years with, new hire, people right out of school. And in the perfect world, that's great when we have ample number of applicants, but right now that doesn't exist. Unfortunately, the world we live in and the hiring climate in law enforcement, nobody has an answer to this yet. And right now, honestly, it's just trying to find that right combination of benefits and, other opportunities for officers coming in here that will kind of reassess whether or not they stay.
So we talked about this in our special session, our working session, and then my understanding of our cost estimate was significantly less than what's presented on here. So on Friday, I did email the chief along with Sean McKnight, and I basically told them, help sell me on this. I want to get there. I want to try and think outside the box, but I'm worried about the cost of potentially $10,000 or more per year per officer. And then I still have concerns about once we offer it for one department, that it's going to be a benefit offered to all city employees, which could easily cost the city over $100,000 a year. I appreciate both Sean McKnight and the chief got back to me with some helpful information that really guided my thoughts. But I think those are my primary concerns, is that we need to be stewards of our taxpayer dollars. And I'm worried as a city official, knowing that we have put in a lot of energy to balancing our budget and getting to a place of stability. And now looking at increasing that by $15,000 to $20,000 a year without actually adding additional staff beyond what is currently budgeted and then potentially adding a $100,000 benefit for the rest of the city. There's nothing that requires us to say yes if it's requested by other departments. I realize there's a difference between the police department, but those were my concerns heading into this conversation tonight. So I'm good with the sabbatical. I think that's fine. I'm good with the PTO. I like that. I'm good with those things. It's so much money. It is so much money.
And honestly, Sean, I don't necessarily disagree with you on it. There is a potential for significant impact to the budget. As I've said and will continue to reiterate, I expect that if the council approves this, at some point, whether it's now or down the road, the rest of the city staff will request the same thing. What I do know is that if we are switching our mindset for the type of individual that we are searching for, whether it's this or something else, we have to find that mix of things that appeal to them. I can say with certainty, 2 people that I had reached out to in regards to the hiring, one which will be interviewing on Thursday, have both indicated to me that the medical piece of this, if the city were to ever even go that way, is a factor. It's something that will sit with them. If we were marketing to the 21-year-olds coming out of school, this doesn't appeal to them. And I know that because our youngest officer in the department has said, this doesn't benefit him. What does he care? But that's not who we're marketing to, and that's not who we're trying to bring in to stabilize the department. Now, I don't know if this is the answer. I really don't. I think a combination of all of these things together, there's a mix and a combination within here. Some of these will fail, some of these will not fail, but somewhere in here, we're going to find that right mix of things to say, yep, we got it right, and we're getting the people we're looking for, and we're getting the stability. What I do know is we've got to think outside the box from what the norm is. Right now, the big thing in our industry is, bonuses. Bonuses are a short-term fix. That's why I haven't brought them before the council. $5,000, come work here, we'll give you a $5,000 hiring bonus. Great, after 1 year, I'm not committed to stay here. I can go jump to the next department that's gonna give me 10 now. And then I can go to the next one. It's a short-term thing. It doesn't establish stability over the long haul. So, really for us, I see this as what can we do to establish that? I don't know if this is it. It's the only thing that I can see as a parent, as a father, as somebody who medical insurance is huge for me, could look at and say, that is a huge expense for me. That would be something that would make me, 1, want to go there, but 2, potentially stay. That's just me.
Can I add something to that? The whole thought process behind this was we were trying to think of ways that would appeal to somebody to stay here for a longer period of time, because the training costs, and I can't remember what the training costs for a new hire is, like 18,000 or something like that. So that's a high number right there, and if we can eliminate that by having somebody stay here longer term, and I mean, like Paul said, I don't know what the right mix is. It's just that our thinking needs to be, how are we going to recruit and retain someone who's going to stay here for a long period of time? What is that mix of benefits that will appeal to that person?
No, I get it. And that's one of the things that I asked Sean and the chief to provide me, are those costs, and the number was 18,362. I don't know. I just know that as we're looking at, even if we say no, it's going to be a topic of conversation at the next round of union negotiations. We're just inviting, we're at least inviting the ask by putting it out there. And I just think we need to be really careful and intentional about what we're agreeing for. Neil?
You know, if it was just the police department, we could probably swallow this. But we all know you're set a precedent, and every department's gonna want the same benefit, and rightfully so. And at the end of the day, I hate to be a naysayer, but if the cost of police service, pretty soon, Joe taxpayer's gonna say, well, you better go with the county, because we just can't afford it. And I didn't see that day, but the writing is starting to come up on the wall. And I don't know which way to turn, but we can't blow the budget just to have a police department. Somehow, some way, things have to work.
Well, the worst thing to do is nothing.
Agreed?
Okay, if we decide not to do this, and the city has to go towards sheriff protection, I highly think that there's no turning back to reestablish another police department. And then we're going to be at the mercy of the sheriff's department, which is going to include poor quality call times, not to say the patrolling. So either we've got to do something that's going to hire in the officers and be an attraction to them, because the hiring climate for police officers is a lot different than other city workers. Okay, I'm not discounting the city workers, because we all know that their jobs are just as important, but the climate is different for each department. And we've got to do something with the police department, otherwise we're just going to go backwards, and once we're at that backwards point, it's going to be really hard to turn that back around. So I say that we go with it and see how it's going to work, because we're not the only city with hiring police officers problem in the state of Minnesota or wherever. And I just think that we need to do something, because the worst thing to do would be absolutely nothing right now.
Willing to be honest, if you guys asked me 10 years ago what I'd be looking at hiring, this wouldn't be the way we'd go about it. The current climate that's out there, though, it tells me we have to change. One of our officers who just left 2 years ago is, and I mentioned this to you earlier today in my email, Sean, one of our officers that left 2 years ago is leaving their department after 2 years and going to another agency. The loyalty and the dedication just doesn't exist like it used to, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's the world that we live in, which means we have to look for and change our way of thinking when it comes to who we are trying to attract here. Do we want the young guy? Do we want, the really old veteran who's, getting close to retirement? Do we want somebody who's maybe a little more stable, who's gonna come in here, potentially start a family, and stay here not wanting to uproot that family? To me, that seems to be the most logical, stable applicant. But I don't know. The tough part is to get somebody who's got experience, we have to set ourselves apart. And like I mentioned in my email today, Sean, we're only going to set ourselves apart until everybody else is doing it.
I understand.
And I don't disagree with Neil one bit. Small agencies in rural Minnesota are being cannibalized by the larger agencies in the metro area. And I had a conversation with Sean McKnight, and we both agree, it will not surprise me to see 10 more agencies fold this year. Easily. We are running out of people to put in these jobs, which means we have to try and attract somebody different. The problem is I can't go after another officer in an agency of 20, in a community of 2,500 for $1 more an hour, but $4.50 an hour more for health insurance. The math just doesn't work out for them. I don't know that this is the answer. I'll be the first to say it. I understand the costs just as much as everybody else in this panel. But I also know this. If the city goes this direction, and this doesn't do anything to bring anybody in, the cost is zero. Now, we still have the other side, the city workers and everything else, and where that conversation is down the road. But If this doesn't help to bring in the people we're looking for, we're not spending a dime.
You have something else? It looks like your hand.
Well, I think we all got an email this afternoon with some cost figures from the treasurer.
Yep.
I hope everybody read it. And we are currently offering some disability and other benefits that most cities don't. So do we take those away and pay 100% of your health care, or it's gotta even out? We can't have the Cadillac policy for benefits that we can't afford.
And Neil, I read that email. I also talked with the union steward on that, or the union rep on that. And we would both wholeheartedly disagree with that assessment. There isn't an agency out there in the city out there that I don't know of, that provides most, if not all, of those same benefits. They may not be providing it through his company, but most cities are providing life insurance. Most cities are providing some sort of a disability. It's not unique, and I wholeheartedly disagree. And I had a lengthy conversation with Belinda on this before this meeting. And what really concerns me as far as the information she was provided is that we have no documentation that was provided back from them. We have simply an individual saying, I looked at 2 people within the city who are on family coverage. Well, I can look at, you know, what our current costs are and know where those fixed costs will be based on people's ages and based on the number of people in their family. The problem is we don't know who we're gonna hire, so we don't know what those numbers would ever look like. But I think some of that information in that email, I think, quite honestly, from the city side of things, it would be more than appropriate and is more than appropriate to ask our individual rep, you know, for our insurance, to provide us actual quotes and information accordingly. You know, we've put out RFPs for auditors in the past and for all these different positions. I don't think it's, you know, I just don't think it's out of line to ask for supporting documentation for what's being said.
What if we looked instead at a bonus of, you know, you said you can go $5,000 here and get 10 in a different location. What if we did 10 at 2 years instead of 5 at 1?
I still think we're
Insurance costs us.
I know. I still, honestly, Sean, I still think we're playing the short game. You know, and that's what concerns me about the bonuses is if we're only playing a short game, are we really accomplishing what we're looking for? Who are we going to attract with a $10,000 bonus? That kid who's like, that's 10 grand. I can buy a lot of gaming systems for that. I can do whatever. I mean, I'm concerned that we need to find that long-term solution and those long-term benefits.
And I think the residents would rather see money go towards benefits than just a flat-out bonus.
I think if it creates stability, I would agree with you. I think the one thing that we don't know, or the one thing that has to be factored in here is, you know, those intangibles, the unknowns, right? Or not necessarily the unknowns, but the things that we really can't quantify and put a dollar amount to, which is the knowledge of an officer that we lose when somebody leaves. You know, the familiarity with the community. You know, in my early days in, you know, working straight patrol, I could tell you when a car was out of place, you know, when it wasn't supposed to be where it was, who drives what vehicle. That is invaluable, and you can't put a dollar amount on that. That's what you get when you have stable officers. That's what you get when you have people who are, you know, willing to stay somewhere. I just think we're in a climate now where our focus isn't on the new officer to make that work. It's on somebody else. And I agree with you. I understand the costs. I totally understand the costs. But I also don't expect to see, you know, us to hire a 34-year-old with 2 kids. I think a younger family, maybe with a kid or maybe a married couple, is a potential. I just don't know that we're going to see the others. I did do some looking on the Post Board's website today, and if full medical isn't an option, maybe there's a happy medium somewhere. Maybe there's a breakdown to say the city will pay X% above what the single is for somebody on family coverage. The city of La Crescent, and I didn't get a chance, maybe somebody knows the population, I didn't get a chance to Google it. They pay $1,800 towards family coverage for their officers. If we were to bring an officer in at 34 years of age with 2 kids, we're less than that. I think when we look at our benefits from a family side of things, I think we're light. And I think if that's who we're trying to attract, a more stable, family-oriented individual, we at least have to assess and look at that and say, maybe we can do better.
That was kind of my thought, is to increase the family coverage from a single coverage.
But you know you're gonna have to do it for everybody.
Yeah. And that's where
And my other thought is, when it comes right down to it, it's a budgeting thing, and it's Paul's budget. And if it's gonna cost him an extra $10,000 a year, he's gotta find that $10,000. I mean, basically, it's his budget.
it comes down, I mean, let's go back to Neil's point. The writing is on the wall for a lot of small-town agencies, and I hope that we can find a way to weather this out, because the tide will turn. But if we can't, now we've started something, and now we're offering a benefit to all of the other employees in the city at the tune of $100,000 a year, and we lost what we were trying to get in the first place.
Not if we cap it. Well,
So
You know.
I'm just saying, I get it. I hear everything. There's no right answer. This is just a really hard question to be asking because it's a lot of money. I would be okay with it with the explicit knowledge that this is being reviewed at the next contract negotiation, and there is no promise of ongoing coverage. This is something.
Bill?
Well, that's not gonna help him with his recruiting if he has to tell his recruits that.
Well,
That's gonna,
so what the union steward, what the union rep suggested was that it would be permanent for anybody employed during the position. So making it a permanent benefit for those who are hired right now, but not necessarily for
all the rest of the employees.
for new hires.
So anybody after the next contract.
Yeah. And as if we don't see anyone, you know, I don't want to continue it, and it,
Right, if we hire someone with this benefit, and
You don't
then
wanna
they
lose
leave in
them.
2 years.
Right.
Then there's no point in doing it, because they're not, it's not doing what we want it to do.
But in 2 years, all the employees will expect this.
Well, in 2 years, then we have to negotiate it.
They have a different union, so they can negotiate through them, see what happens.
Nothing's a for sure deal.
Well, and, you know, as the chief was saying, if it doesn't work to recruit people with this, then we won't have to pay it because we won't have the people. So,
but you've got people in the department.
yes, that's true, but how many of them are 34 with 2 kids?
Nobody, well, Paul, he doesn't.
Yes.
His are grown, almost.
But none of the others. And I just, if, you know, the writing may be on the wall, but, you know, that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to delay it as long as possible. And if is the possibility of, you know, 10 agencies folding in the state, whether they're here or not, that's every single one that folds anywhere close to us, it puts a strain on this. I mean, they're having a problem hiring too, the sheriff's department, and they have more and more area to cover every year. So I mean, it may happen. There might not be anything we can do to stop it, but I think we need to hold it off as long as we can. And if we really think that this is going to lead to more stable employees, and I don't see why it wouldn't, and again, if it doesn't, then we don't have to pay them, you know? Then I don't see the harm in trying.
We can tell the other employees it's an experiment, and we're not doing it.
A great experiment.
I mean, that's part of the reason why I think we need to have an explicit understanding that
Hey,
while
no,
this
there
might
we
be permanent for employees who are hired, it's not a guaranteed benefit moving forward.
No,
Because
we have to see how it
there are
works.
already concerns by certain employees about some of the benefits and the negotiations of the police department. And saying it's a different department, a different hiring climate with different concerns, only goes so far.
It's a different union.
And it's a different, fine, but
But I will,
you have to respect all of the employees as a city. We can't say, you know what, Ron, forget about Public Works, we don't care because we really need to hire a police department right now. Because if we do that, if we give the middle finger to Public Works, now we're gonna be hiring a police department and a full Public Works department.
Well,
And that's what we need to be cognizant of as we make these decisions.
I still am a city employee for the next week, so I certainly am cognizant of those things. I think, you know, and there are things too that have happened for other departments where, you know, the police department, I'm sure, has been like, well, what about us? You know, and so I think if we sat and did, yes, it is going to come up. You know, we all know that. It's going to come up and we'll have to figure it out. But I don't think we can look at the issues surrounding each department and in light of, well, what happens if this? What happens if that? You know, we keep saying we need to try something else, we need to do something, and I haven't heard anything else that feels like a possibility to actually work.
What are we paying now? What percent? Is it 50?
We just pay a flat $950.
Per month. And that's basically 50%.
It's for single coverage, it covers
100%.
almost 100% depending on your age. Doesn't it for?
Pretty close.
Yeah, but I thought I have to remember the totals. I thought as you got up in age, it started to be,
oh yeah, it goes up.
Yeah.
yeah,
It goes way up. So just to give you an idea, right now, if I were to take family coverage here, I would easily be paying out of pocket over $1,000, if not more, every single month out of my own pocket. Now, I take just single coverage within the city here. And, you know, but I'm also, you know, younger, middle-aged. And my kids are older, so they cost more. But I also don't believe that my demographic is who we're looking to attract either. I think we're looking to attract people who are younger than me with younger families, which are gonna have less of a cost.
well,
What if we jump that up? Not that if you're single, 950 covers it. Not that you'd get 1,200, but what if we upped it to 1,200? Then if the coverage is 950, 1,000, that's all you get. What your coverage is up to.
Well, that's all it is now. They don't get the 950 even if it's less.
Correct,
It's just
okay.
for their insurance, yeah.
And, you know, I think one of the things that, you know, as I pondered this and thought about this today, and over the last, you know, how many weeks, you know, I really think our mindset, it's twofold. One, it's what we're trying to accomplish and who we're looking to recruit, but also looking at it for not necessarily ways that it's gonna fail, but ways that we can make this succeed. And I think, you know, if we change our mindset and say, you know what, you know, we've done things, we've done the wages, we've done the sabbatical, you know, we're doing and we're putting things in place that I think ultimately for somebody who is looking for that family environment, and that nice balance of work-life, you know, mix that doesn't usually exist in our line of work, I think, you know, we're pushing in that direction. you know? Do I think it's gonna work? I don't know.
We just,
I would like to hope that it will. But I do know that, you know, nobody ever succeeded without trying. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed, but if you don't try, you'll never succeed.
Agreed. We've got 3 proposals on here. Let's break this up. Can we start with the sabbatical? Does anybody want to make a motion on that? I'm not hearing anything opposed. The question was raised earlier today, and I don't even remember where, but somebody mentioned, why isn't everybody getting a sabbatical? And I will say, I think everybody should have one. I don't care what field you're in, we all need it. But do we have thoughts on the sabbatical? Do we want to make a motion on that? I think we should break these up.
no, that's fine.
I have a comment on that one.
Okay.
I think the most driving issue right now would be the insurance part. And maybe look at the insurance part more closely than the sabbatical right now. Have that be maybe the 3rd on our list.
So you're in favor of leaving it at 5?
I'd say let's, put yourself, just imagining myself looking for a job, would the 3 or 5 year sabbatical weigh more, or would the health insurance? And I think I would probably want to take a closer look at the health insurance than the sabbatical.
It's true, but we already have the sabbatical, we're just lowering it. And the thing is, we don't have an employee that would benefit from it for 3 years, so it's not going to be a whole lot. different.
Next year.
Paul will be next year?
Cody.
Cody will be.
And Cody's told me, he's not gonna take it until, we at least have more than what we have. So I'm not concerned about Cody on that. I understand your point, Paul, and I know Neil made that point in the meeting the other day about just waiting. But some of this comes down to marketing. And I agree with you, the 21-year-old going, oh, I get a sabbatical, they're gonna look at you and be like, what's a sabbatical?
And who cares?
Correct.
Yeah. But
Somebody who's been in
But
this line of
it's-
work for 3 to 4 years, who we're trying to bring over into our agency, is gonna be like, oh my gosh, could I use that? And it is strictly a marketing thing. To drop that at this point, it would be something that's gonna be up for negotiations, or that the guys would bring up in a year and a half anyways, if it wasn't dropped down. But this is about marketing and trying to bring in, we got 8 applicants. This is about trying to get us into 5 applicants, and hopefully 5 applicants with experience that we actually can choose from. So it really is about the marketing piece on that. The costs aren't there for the city until after the next contract anyways.
is anybody willing to make a motion one way or another on the sabbatical?
I'll make the motion to lower the sabbatical to 3 years. I don't have.
Motion by Soini, is there a second? I'll second. Motion by Soini, seconded by Ranky, to lower the sabbatical qualification or eligibility from 5 years to 3 years. Any further discussion on that piece alone? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. On to allowing for PTO upon completion of field training. Because right now, it's what, a year before they can start using PTO?
Yeah, once they're off probation.
Just dumb. And that, I think, is one that's gonna come back in other departments, and I'm fine with that.
It should be.
It should be. So,
I'll change the language in the contract to allow for officers to use PTO once they are done with their FTO.
motion by Soini, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brick, sorry, Neil, heard it first. Allowing officers to use PTO once they're done with FTO. Discussion. Yep.
Typically, is that like 6 months?
No, it's gonna be 3 to 4.
3 to 4?
But depending upon the officer, if we bring in a officer with experience,
It could be 2.
I'm hoping for a month. Depending upon how much experience they have, I'm hoping it's a matter of just teaching them the community and how we do things here
Well,
in Painesville.
I'm just asking the timeline because I think we want to be the same throughout departments.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So I think we should have 3 months or a specific timeline.
So instead of saying just after you're done with FTO, change it to 4
3
months.
or 4 months, so we can do the same across the board.
We don't have any probationary employees in the rest of the departments.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
We
When we
do.
hire full-time, they are technically probationary.
Yeah, but just for
A year.
A year, is it a year? Oh,
1 year.
yeah, then, yeah, that sounds good.
Well, we have a
We
motion on the
have to
table.
amend it. I could amend the motion to,
Well, it's cleaner, let's just vote it down if that's the way we want to go. So right now, the motion on the table is to allow for utilization of PTO once officers are done with their field training. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed? Nay.
May.
Motion does not prevail. Right, is there a motion on the PTO?
I'll make a motion when they're done with their field training in 4 months.
There's a motion by Hertzberg to allow officers to utilize their PTO at the completion of their field training and no sooner than 4 months. Is there a second to that? I'll second that. Motion by Hertzberg, seconded by Ranky, authorizing officers to use their PTO upon completion of their field training no earlier than 4 months. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, back to insurance. One thought I had, we talked about there are no other ideas. Chief, this is gonna take a lot of work between you and Tarek probably, but what if we dropped the police department to a 5-step scale instead of 10? Doesn't necessarily attract the same experience, but it might help with retention. Just food for thought that came into my head. We don't need to flush it out now, but just something to start brewing in the back of mind. So,
That'd be something for next contract, maybe.
yeah.
Not now.
Anything else left to say on the health insurance? Otherwise, I believe a motion would be in order at this point.
What did we come to a consensus? We
I
didn't,
don't
did
know that we
we?
came to a consensus, no. I think at this point, somebody's going to have to make a motion, we'll see if there's a second, and we'll have debate and vote it up or down from there.
I'm thinking.
Me too.
Well, I want to do a motion that we do pay family health. But I'm debating if I want to make it a limit of, say, 1,500. I think that's
I'd kind of like to have the figure what that would run us across the board.
Well, I think if you went with a fixed number, I mean, generally you'd be able to figure that out.
yeah.
To a point, you'd be able to figure it out. Because you're gonna have, like the numbers that I put together for you guys kind of show. If we get an officer that comes in that's 27 with 1 child, they're still below the 1,500.
Yeah, I think that'll be my motion, doing family health insurance with a maximum of 1,500.
So let me just ensure that I understand. Would that increase the city's contribution from $950 to $1,500?
Right.
Or would it add 15 on top of the 950?
No,
Up to 15.
Up to 15.
Okay. So there's a motion by Soini to increase the city's contribution to health insurance for the police department from $950 to $1,500. Any stipulated language or anything like that that you want to put in there, or are we just leaving it at that?
I think that's,
Well, Gene, were you saying that it was still $950 for single and it was $1,500 for family, or are you saying just increase it to $1,500?
no, I was saying 950 for single and 1,500 for family.
Well, our plan is weird though, because we don't have a single option and a family
Family.
option. You just pay per the number of people that you have insured.
Yeah, so we might not be able to do it that way.
Well, that's why I think you just said.
Depends on
That's-
the need.
You'd be able to do it that way. It's no different than now. I mean,
Right.
my rates compared to bills compared to runs are all different.
Yeah.
So we just know that if you're really old and you're above the $950 cap,
Age 55.
I wasn't gonna say Ron's name, but,
Ron's older than that.
but no, if you're on the older end of the scale and you're single, you're gonna be maxed out. I mean, you're gonna be over that and you're gonna be paying in. So the same thing would be here under our current family plan. So my family, I'd probably be over $2,000. So I won't be going on this just because of my family situation, just so everybody up here knows. If I were to, and it was a $15 cap for family, I'd still have to pay anything above that. Right.
So I understand the motion is to increase the city's contribution to police department or police officer health insurance from $950 a month to $1,500 per month. And given the way that the city's health insurance is structured, I don't know that we can differentiate between single and family because it just depends on the age of whoever's being covered. It's asinine, Bill, but Belinda explained it and it makes sense because of what's available to us, but it's still asinine.
And it may change in a year or two.
Should we include the wording up to 1,500? Instead of just 1,500, because there may be some who think, oh, I'm only spending 11, maybe I should get 400 cash back.
Oh, no,
I
it doesn't work that way. No.
Okay.
I know.
So, let's hold on. Kristen's gonna come out here and strangle us. The motion's by Soini to increase the contribution from $950 to up to $1,500. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion by Soini, seconded by Hartsburg, increasing the contribution up to $1,500. Any further discussion on that? The only thing I will add is, I think it goes without saying, but I'm gonna say it anyway because I've been trained to do stuff like that. As we're looking at who we're hiring and stuff, we take whoever applies and whoever's most qualified. We don't have, we would never sit and go, no, we're not gonna pay your health insurance because you're too aged. So,
It does go without saying, but you already said it.
I'm saying it anyway.
We're going to hire the best person. We don't care how old they are.
Exactly. The best person might be over 55. There you go. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Is there a motion to pay full family medical for the Public Works Director?
He can collect social security.
What's going on our agenda?
Medicare pretty soon.
He's retiring soon.
No, he's not. He's told me 15 years.
He still will have Medicare and supplement.
In your dreams.
Negotiate with him if you'll pay full medical if he stays another 15, maybe he'll stay.
I've asked the question of what it would take, and I'm told that,
It's not happening.
yeah.
That's.
Want to talk to us about Ethan?
It's well needed.
Yes, so Mr. Schwinghammer has indicated that he is interested in assisting us in our, staff shortages here. Ethan has worked for the sheriff's office for over a year now. He worked for Belgrade, Bruton before that, Clara City before that, and some other different agencies before that. So he's been around for a while. He's familiar with, the area. He knows pretty much everything. We'd be looking at just bringing him in a similar capacity to what we have with Chad and Darren, and kind of a fill-in as they can type position. He is currently the sheriff's office DWI enforcement officer. While that may not seem like much, what it actually does is it would potentially give us somebody who makes his own schedule. So it makes him a little bit more flexible for us to be able to bring him in when we have some needs potentially. As of now, I would look at him just simply as a temporary thing. My hope, my goal, my dreams are that we get this department back again to full staff sooner than later to where we do not need these guys. But there's going to be some times coming up where we're going to need people, and he's willing to come over and help out. Just because of his experience, I'd recommend starting with step 3 of our current pay scale.
So I have experience with Officer or Deputy Schwinghammer. He was in Appleton when I was working out in Swift, and I had good experience with him out there. So I think step 3 is appropriate. I would be in favor of hiring him.
I'll make the motion to hire Ethan Schwinghammer as a temporary part-time police officer, grade 9, step 3, $28.81 an hour.
Motion by Sonia is stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Thielen. Sorry, Megan heard it first. All those, any further discussion?
That was Neil, not me.
I should just mention too, the only thing that we'll really need to deal with Ethan on is getting him some uniforms.
Yeah.
And we may actually have some uniforms that will fit him, so.
Like you could probably fit in Logan's, unless things have changed.
There's probably a few uniforms we have will fit in.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. Ron, you've been sitting patiently over there. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ream's tiling request. He had talked to an agronomist, and the agronomist had recommended tiling on his property, which I totally agree with. That this property, it is in low ground, and tiling would greatly benefit his property. However, if you look at the map on page number 40, the city's policy on tiling, you can see the city, we did put in a lot of mainline tile. The city, we have never installed for any farmer any finger tiling. And Public Works reviewed that, and it would just be a horrible policy to start putting tile under everybody's, we would end up spending a couple $1 million in tiling if we did everybody's. So mainly for that reason, Public Works, we recommended denying it and passing it along. I did notify Mr. Ream that this was going here and would be recommended to deny, so I think he is well aware of it.
I think you and I did the math that day, and based on the rent we received per acre, it was something like a 150-year return on our investment, right?
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Any further discussion? A motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion to deny the Chad Rain tiling request.
Okay, there's a motion by Thielen to deny the Chad Rain tiling request. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, on to the nuisance properties.
You're skipping liquor store?
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a second.
You're just eager to get to nuisance property.
Nope, just eager to see Bill's eyes roll at me, that's all. I just like the Bill squared table over there.
Oh, that's right.
I like sitting over here.
Can you talk to us about an assistant manager, Bill?
Wait, can I say something first?
Yeah.
Okay. In the liquor board meeting, we had briefly discussed how the hiring is going for assistant liquor store manager. There was no recommendation from them to not hire for that position, which is what I stated at the policies and procedures meeting. So even though it was mentioned at the meeting, it wasn't a recommendation from the board there. Bill and I had a chat before about the need to hire an assistant manager, especially given the current busy summer season coming up. Meaning that if it's going to take away from his efforts at the store, or is it something that's needed? And he indicated that he would like to go ahead and start looking for this position because he'll have some things coming up soon that will take away from his time at the store, and the time is right to find a person to be the number 2 there.
Bill?
So you can add or take it from there.
And I'd like full health insurance for this person as well. So we had 2 candidates that applied. Both unfortunately weren't qualified for what we're looking at, so we asked to change the verbiage, which was happened at policies and procedures.
We did that.
And we'd like to pursue in moving forward now. Since this was not a budget item, if we want to wait to get through the summer to the fall, so we can hit those kids that are possibly coming out of college, I'm willing to do that.
ASAP.
So, one question is, since you joked about it, now it jogged my memory, so careful what you say. Would this person be a union employee subject to union benefits, or would they be at the department head level like yourself, not eligible?
I guess that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
We've not had that discussion.
Yeah, I was assuming it would be an hourly employee, not a,
Well, they'd be hourly, but would they be union? I mean,
They
they
would-
would
they
still
would-
be union.
they would be union.
They could-
My understanding, but again, it wasn't explicitly said.
And how would that
Because right
work?
now, it's just department heads that aren't union.
Correct.
So until they became a department head,
Yeah,
I guess that's what it should be.
And would they fall underneath with the rest of the staff?
So the discussion of policies and procedures was the concern over the declining liquor sales, as people go back to work, as bars are open more, things like that. Is it feasible? And I think, sort of the conclusion there was, maybe not at this time.
it will hurt profits,
So,
definitely.
yeah, that it would hurt profits. Policies and procedures wasn't interested in a turning of the tables where the city is going to be cutting the liquor store checks instead of vice versa.
That's a possibility.
Right, right.
So I think that was the biggest concern, and that's where the recommendation from policies and procedures came from, which is, cool, change the job description, do whatever you want there, but maybe hold off on hiring right now.
To the
Speak
budget.
to that at all?
What's that?
Can you speak to that piece at all?
Well, if, with Megan leaving this week, we have a staff member that is out for, we don't know, and can't speak on that. And then Adam will be here through September. So we'd be looking at that time pretty hard. I was approached by a gentleman that's looking for a part-time gig for a couple days a week that could help us possibly while the other staff members recouping, to get us a little bit further. So, summertime's our bread and butter. I'm open to anything. If we want to get through the summer and then really focus on this, because we need to try to advertise differently than we did the first time. We need to get in the real world and see how things are, market this differently, just like Paul's going to have to as well. I'm okay with that. So,
And we discussed on 2 Fridays ago, whenever it was, a revised job posting that included some language that I'm sure or HR can share with you on incorporating into your listing. That really talks about the benefits of Painesville versus just
right.
the grossness of a job description.
It'd be interesting because we had several applications that were picked up. I don't know the total, but I know several went out. But I think a lot of it might have been some of that verbiage that stopped. Plus, we want to be picky. I really believe and hold fast to that. We want that right candidate.
Well, for right now, we're looking at approving the revised liquor store assistant manager job description. The council had previously posted to authorize hiring, so that motion would not change unless somebody makes a motion to change it.
I'll make the motion to approve the revised liquor store assistant manager position job description.
All right, there's a motion by Soini as stated on the action sheet. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Hertzberg. Any further discussion? Right, all those in favor of the revised job description indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries. All right. Are we ready to move on to nuisance properties?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Paul and I went around and we checked on the nuisance properties today. As I mentioned, we did send out letters to 20 properties, and the update is as follows. 9 out of the 20 are complete, meaning that they cleared up the nuisance. 7 are in progress, so they're working on it. We saw a noticeable difference in them trying to clean up the property. 1, I had a return address, so I had to find out who the new person is and send it to them, so they haven't had it long enough. And 3 have done nothing, no change in their property. And then on top of that, we found 2 more that we added to the list that they haven't received a letter yet.
My car will be gone by Wednesday.
That would have been the 3rd one.
Says no more May, don't come for me.
So as it looks right now, we have 9 that are still cleaning up, or sorry, 7 that are still cleaning up, one that I need to send another letter to, 2 more that are new, and the ones that I'm concerned about are 3 that have done nothing.
So those 3 we should set a hearing for? Or
I look
is
at
that
both
the
of
next
them.
step?
So, one of the things that we discussed the last time this came about is what police involvement had happened. So on those 3, have they been criminally cited in any way?
Want to pass that to the chief and see if he can tell you?
I can tell you off the top of my head, one has.
One has,
Numerous times, or?
okay.
Okay.
He doesn't need it?
He doesn't need it, no.
Okay, well,
Okay.
pass them to me as well.
Yep.
You see that when you're done, Gene?
Sure. It's nice to see some of them at least gotten taken care of.
Well, I mean, I think for the one that's been criminally cited, we decided that the next step was abatement, or setting some sort of a public hearing on it. But I know Neil's concern was the precedent of we'd criminally cited at least one person before, and should we stick to that before going through the hassle and expense of a public hearing? To see if, you know, a criminal citation would resolve issues.
And the other 2, you mean?
Yeah, so the 2 that have not yet been cited.
Yeah, they should be,
Should they be criminally cited first before we do a public hearing?
yeah. But we can do a hearing just for the one rather than
Yes.
do 3 at once.
Yep.
That'd be easier anyway.
I will say this, the one thing I am concerned about when it comes to issuing citations, and we kind of talked about this a month ago, is, you know, the council made the decision to go down the civil road, and I'm concerned about jumping back and forth between the 2 realms.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't see the benefit of criminally charging people. It's, the reason that I suggested doing this is because the criminal courts are really bad about addressing these kinds of issues. And, I mean, I'm dealing with one from another small town that I think was started in 2019. You know, the person just keeps not showing up for court. The judges don't like to issue warrants for these people, and it just goes on, and then you try to work with them to get it cleaned up, but nothing happens. So it's like there's no end to it. Is my problem. Plus, you got a higher burden of proof in the criminal case, and I just, you know, I think if there's cost to both. I mean, you know, both of them have an expense for the city. I don't know that the civil abatement process costs more, but, I mean, if you think that somehow fairness requires that to happen, I guess that's your judgment call, and I wouldn't second guess you if that's what you think has to happen, but I don't, they're 2 different processes. I wouldn't suggest doing both necessarily as being beneficial. I think pick the way you want to go and go that way, would be my suggestion.
What would your thoughts be, Bill, of a hybrid? So we've sent them a letter from the city side saying do this kind of or else, right? And then, you know, if the PD followed up with a letter basically saying, you know what, you were given a month to do this, and to be fair, those 3 properties still have a week, just based on the time when the letters were sent out and everything else. But sending them a letter then, if they don't get it done in a week, saying, okay, you were notified by the city of this, we're now, from a PD side of things, giving you another, you know, 2 weeks to address this, and failing to do so could result in A, B, C, and D, and E, whatever it may be. You know, whether that be criminal or it going back to the city for abatement or whatever.
I mean, for me, I don't see the benefit of mixing it up. I mean, that's, you know, I just would rather decide to do one or the other and do it.
Did you ever get restitution from the property owner? Say the city was to incur a cost.
Yeah, I think if you end up doing the cleanup, you might be able to assess the cost of that.
Put it on the taxes,
Yeah.
Okay.
like we do the water bill.
Neil?
What happens with the vehicle? A tow service would pick it up.
Yeah.
They're gonna keep it how long, and if the,
Yeah, they would keep it. And I think they know that if property potentially has a value, they have an obligation to keep it safely and then give notice and all that before they do anything with it. So they would go through, they would be knowledgeable of that process.
And Bill, the public hearing would consist of TARC giving a presentation on what's there, what constitutes the nuisance and things like that. And then we as the governing board would determine if it meets that and then probably give them a certain time in addition to what they've had in order to cure.
Right.
Before taking that action, right?
Yes. Yeah.
abatement's the final step.
And then, I mean, I would say that, in almost all these cases, I'm going to say that, I'm going to presume that the property owner is going to say, you better not step foot on my property. And so I'm going to want to get a civil warrant from the court authorizing entry to the property to remove the nuisance.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, in a property or two that is on this list, there's been an ongoing issue that has been briefly taken care of in the past in order to not incur fines, and then the same issue returned, and then we got stuck in this situation. So, what do we do if that happens again?
I think we ask for a recommendation from the city administrator on how to handle it if it returns.
Do we need, as I say, do we need to go through where we just, this is like a song and dance we do every couple months and we go, because that sounds exhausting and not very
Yeah,
effective.
well, I mean, I guess we could probably get a little bit creative on the order that the council issues to abate the nuisance, and, I suppose we could say that the nuisance is to be abated and to remain abated.
Okay.
And then we could probably apply for a warrant if it's not done.
Well, I think the concern is that there's a property on here that's been cleaned, but we've had historical problems with. So we wouldn't be doing a public hearing or an abatement on that property. But what happens if in 3 weeks' time, the nuisance has returned? I think at that point, I don't read our ordinance as requiring a warning letter. So I think it'd be at TARC's decision, in consultation with Bill, on, do you recommend that we schedule a public hearing on it? And say, look, we've done this song and dance however many times, now we just need to go to the next step.
Yeah, and that's, and that's fine. I mean, in a way, there's a side of me that would like to have a process that we always follow, but if it's a repeat, I guess we could try to shorten it up.
Yeah, agreed. For new properties or new issues, I like the process we've established. But for repeat offenders, it might be a discretion call. Well, is there a motion on the 3 properties identified? And TARC does have a list if anybody wants to see it.
That we hold a abatement hearing? I'll make that motion.
It's a motion by Soini. Bill, do we need the addresses in the minutes at this point?
I think
3 properties.
you can just instruct TARC to send out an abatement letter or a notice of a public hearing to the 3 property owners that are identified on TARC's list. If you want to read the addresses into the record, I mean, I guess it's public information at this point, so it probably doesn't hurt anything.
All right. So the motion by Soini is to instruct the city administrator to set a notice or to send out notice of public hearing for the property at 711 Minnesota, 899 Flanders Drive, and 353 Stearns Avenue. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, motion by Soini, seconded by Thielen. Any further discussion?
The only thing I would just note for the record, that this notice under our ordinance has to go to everybody with an interest in the property, so I'm kind of assuming that we have to get like an O&E report to find out interest holders in the property to make sure that notice goes to all the right people.
Good idea.
I do have one question. The 8 or 10 that are making progress, how
Yes.
much time are we giving them, or?
Well, they're all at different stages of progress. I think Sean noted one of them, and they have improved. Some have improved almost to the level where we can say, yeah, they're done cleaning it up, but they're all at various stages. I just noted it, meaning that it has improved from when we looked at it the last time.
I mean, our objective is complete,
Yes,
so
we're getting there.
you send another letter and give them 2 more weeks, or I mean, what's the next step there?
No, I could send another letter saying, yes, I mean, we've noted the progress, and, I mean, if you guys think it's necessary, we could give them more time.
Well, as Paul noted, apparently everybody's got at least another week, so.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was going to add. Gene, I assume your motion is to direct the city administrator to do that after the 1 week, or
Oh,
after
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
notice period expires.
After the, yeah. Well, they haven't started. so-
Assuming that they're in the same condition as they are now at the end of that notice period.
And I think the plan would be Tarek and I will go back around, right around that expiration date and recheck the properties and verify whether or not they're in compliance. With Memorial Day weekend coming up, going back next Tuesday, we might actually see some significant improvements.
No, that's a good idea.
And then we can just bring it back in our next, for the second meeting in June.
For setting a date.
Bring it back to us at some point.
For
Yep.
setting the public hearing?
No, for the,
Or the progress?
yellow ones.
Yeah, these will have I'll wait till the end of the period and then send them out a letter.
Okay.
But don't we have to set a date for the hearing? If he's going to send out a letter? Or doesn't
Can you
he?
just authorize him to set the date based
Yeah.
on, when we get the O&E reports and everything, and
Yep. We'll wait till the next meeting.
All right.
And I'll look to you for the letter.
Okay, so there's a motion by Soini, seconded by Thielen, directing the city administrator to send out a public notice hearing at a time and date set in consultation with the city administrator and the city attorney and the city clerk to the addresses listed, 711 Minnesota, 899 Flanders, 353 Stearns, at the expiration of the notice period, which was sometime next week. Clear as mud? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, annexation on page 47.
Well, I would like to say something about this, but I don't know, I don't have as much information to say about it as Bill would have, so.
Okay, so Bill, we talked at our retreat about the process for beginning the annexation of all of the township properties located within the city borders of Painesville, and it was the council's wish that we start moving forward on that. So,
Okay.
I think whatever we need to do to start that process.
And I talked to Tarek today. I mean, I've got concerns, but I've got to call into the Boundary Adjustments Board. I'm going to talk to them about the things that are concerning me, and then I will report back to you after I've talked to them. But in an ideal world, I told Tarek that we'd have a conversation with the Township Board, make sure they don't have any objection to us doing it, and we'd go forward. I've suggested that in the past. I think that conversation just never happens, and I don't know why, but I'll talk with the Boundary Adjustments Board and see if they think my concerns are real issues, or if they think I'm just worrying about stuff. We'll go from there.
In the meantime, do you want to set up something with the Township Board?
I was gonna just suggest that, yeah.
Okay.
I know at one point we had talked about properties owned by the city as well. I'm going to ask them the question, but when I look at those properties, I don't think, there might be one that might touch on the boundaries of the cities, but most of those properties are freestanding outside of the city limits, I think. I'm still going to ask the question, but I don't think that annexation would apply to those because they're not in our boundaries, but
Yeah, and I believe, my recollection of our retreat meeting, or discussion, was that we're only looking at those properties inside the city limits,
Yeah.
not necessarily the city-owned ones outside.
yeah, and do we have a list of those properties? I mean, I kind of can look at my zoning map and see the ones that are in white, but is there like 5 or how many do we?
I think we said 6.
Yeah.
So, and, yeah, we should have a list from the retreat, it should be in that agenda, so we can get that to you. All right. With that, we'll wait for the report back. Informational, we have the meeting schedules in there. Ron, and thank you for bringing up the paving of the alley request. I was going to ask you about that. Public hearing notice from Stearns County Environmental Office, police calls report, the liquor store report. There being no further business, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Did we have a meeting tomorrow night?
Yes,
Yes, we have one tomorrow.
we have a working session tomorrow night.